Chapter 1: The Unexpected Storm. Welcome to Ogi. In this city, the word unpredictable does not exist. The sky is not just a sky. It is a digital canvas painted by the Weather Bureau. For the last 50 years, the forecast has been exactly the same: 24 degrees Celsius, a light breeze, and a 0% chance of rain. It is a paradise of perpetual spring. Until today. Unit 737, a detective robot known as Seven, was walking down Central Avenue. Seven looked human, but his eyes were a little too blue and his posture was a little too perfect. Walking beside him was his partner, Detective Maya. Maya was human, messy, and currently struggling to eat a sandwich while walking. "Seven," Maya asked, wiping crumbs from her jacket, "do you ever wish for rain? Just for a change?" "Negative," Seven replied. His voice was calm and smooth. "Rain causes rust, traffic accidents, and lower productivity. Efficiency requires consistency, Detective." "You're no fun," Maya laughed. "Sometimes a little surprise is good for the soul." Suddenly, a loud siren wailed across the city. People on the street stopped. They looked up. The artificial sun above them flickered, buzzed, and then turned a pale, sickly white. A cold wind blasted through the streets, knocking over cafe tables and blowing hats away. "What is happening?" Maya shouted over the roaring wind. Seven's internal sensors flashed red. He stopped moving and processed the data. "Temperature is plummeting. It has dropped 10 degrees in 30 seconds. This is statistically impossible." Then, the snow began to fall. Not the gentle, romantic snow of a movie, but a fierce, blinding blizzard. Within minutes, the sleek glass towers of Ogi were covered in ice. The perfect summer afternoon had turned into a frozen nightmare. Cars slid on the icy roads, crashing into each other. People screamed and ran for cover. The city was in panic. "Dispatch to all units. Code Red. This is a city-wide weather emergency." Maya grabbed her radio, pressing it against her ear to hear over the wind. "Dispatch, this is Detective Maya. We are near Central Avenue. What are our instructions?" "All patrol units and rescue bots are ordered to prioritize civilian evacuation," the dispatcher shouted through the static. "We have hundreds of accidents reported. Shelters are opening. Get people off the streets immediately." "Copy that," Maya said, ready to run toward a crashed bus. "We'll help with the evacuation." "Negative, Detective," the dispatcher interrupted. "We have enough boots on the ground for rescue operations. We need you and Unit 737 to stop the source." Maya paused. "The source?" "The anomaly is originating from the weather tower. You are the closest investigative team. Find out what is happening and shut it down. You are the only team available for investigation." Maya looked at Seven. The robot was standing perfectly still, calculating. "You heard them, Seven," Maya said. "Everyone else is saving lives. It's up to us to save the sky." Seven adjusted his coat. He did not have heavy armor or special heaters like the rescue bots, but he had his high-level processing unit. "Logical," Seven said. "Treating the symptoms, the accidents, is necessary. But curing the disease, the storm itself, is the most efficient use of our specific skills." "Right," Maya nodded, shivering as the temperature continued to drop. "Let's go solve a crime, Seven." They turned away from the chaos of the shelters and headed toward the looming frozen shape of the weather tower. Chapter 2: The Robot's Tears. The weather tower was usually the heart of the city, a warm and humming hive of energy. But when Seven and Maya arrived, it felt like a tomb. The heating systems had failed completely. The windows were frosted over, blocking out the white light of the blizzard outside. They stepped out of the emergency elevator onto the top floor. The hallway was dark, lit only by the flickering red lights of the alarm system. "It's freezing," Maya whispered, her teeth chattering. "It must be -10 degrees in here." "Correction," Seven said, glancing at his internal thermometer. "Current ambient temperature is -12 degrees Celsius. Exposure to this cold for more than 30 minutes will result in hypothermia for you, detective." "Thanks for the update," Maya muttered, pulling her coat tighter. "Let's make this quick." They reached the heavy double doors of the main control room. Seven pried them open with his enhanced strength. The doors slid back with a loud, frozen crunch. Inside the control room, the air was still and biting. Breath came out in thick white clouds. In the center of the room, directly under the massive main console, sat a lone figure. It was a robot. It was a boxy industrial unit with heavy-duty wheels and vacuum hoses attached to its sides. It sat perfectly still, covered in a thin layer of frost. Its indicator lights were dim. "A cleaning bot," Maya said, stepping closer. "It's frozen solid. It must have been working when the temperature dropped." "It is the only active unit in this room," Seven noted. He walked over to the machine and scanned the barcode printed on its metal chassis. "Beep." "Subject identified," Seven announced. "Unit C-9, designated Kale. He is the assigned automated cleaner for this floor." "Poor Kale," Maya said softly. "He never stood a chance against the cold." Seven did not respond to the sentiment. His visual sensors were already scanning the floor around the robot. He zoomed in on a specific area near Kale's wheels. "Detective," Seven said sharply, "look at the floor. Do you see this?" Maya squinted in the dim light. "Dirt? That's weird. Kale is a cleaning robot. He exists to remove dirt, not to leave it behind." "Precisely," Seven said. He knelt down. "But look closer. It is not just common dust. It is red sand. And it is completely dry. Bone dry." Maya crouched down and touched the red grains with her gloved finger. "Red sand? I've never seen this kind of soil in the city. Everything in OGE is concrete, glass, and metal." Seven activated his internal database, cross-referencing the color and texture of the sand. Accessing building schematics. Seven's eyes flickered for a moment. "Match found. There is a roof garden directly above us on the penthouse level. It uses imported red clay to grow exotic plants." "So this sand came from upstairs," Maya said, puzzled. "But a garden should be wet. Why is this sand so dry? And why did a cleaner bring it here?" "There is another anomaly," Seven said. He pointed to the floor directly underneath Kale's main body. Scattered on the metal floor, right next to the dry sand, were several small, hard lumps. "Ice?" Maya asked. "Yes, but observe the shape," Seven noted. They are not puddles that froze flat on the floor, they are round pellets, like droplets. 7 picked up one of the ice pellets. It was not cloudy or white like the frost on the walls, it was perfectly transparent, like a diamond. Clear ice, 7 analyzed, and dry red sand, in a freezing room. He stood up holding the clear ice in his hand. These two clues are physically contradictory, Maya, 7 declared. Sand does not dry out in a freezer, and water does not freeze this clearly without purification. This is not just a system failure. This is a locked room mystery. Chapter 3: Cold Lies. 7 and Maya stepped out of the freezing control room and into the corridor. Here, the emergency heating was still functioning, although barely. The air was lukewarm, a relief after the Arctic chill inside. 2 people were waiting for them, guarded by a shivering security drone. The first was Dr. Vance, the director of the Weather Bureau. He was a tall man in an expensive, tailored suit that looked out of place in a disaster. He was pacing back and forth, checking his watch angrily. The second was Sarah, the lead engineer. She wore practical blue coveralls and thick boots. Unlike Vance, she looked terrified, hugging her arms tight against her chest. "This is outrageous!" Dr. Vance shouted as soon as he saw the detectives. "I demand you fix the weather immediately. Do you know how much money this city loses every minute the sun is down?" "We are working on it, Dr. Vance," Maya said, pulling out her digital notebook. "But first, we need to talk about where you were when the temperature dropped." Vance scoffed. "I have already told security. I was in my office. I was on an important call with investors." 7 stepped forward, his blue eyes locked onto Vance. "Correction. I have accessed the telecommunication logs for the entire building. Your phone line was inactive between 1:55 p.m. and 2:05 p.m. Vance froze. He adjusted his tie nervously. I was preparing for the call. I was resting my eyes. I did not want to be disturbed." "So, you have no alibi," Maya said sharply. "And you, Sarah?" Sarah jumped slightly. "I was in the basement server room," she said quickly. "I was running diagnostics on the cooling fans." 7 tilted his head. "The elevator logs confirm you went to the basement. However, there is a 5-minute gap in your timeline before you logged into the server room." Sarah bit her lip. I stopped to get a coffee from the vending machine. Look, I know how this looks. I admit I don't like the artificial weather system. I prefer real nature. But I wouldn't freeze the city. People could die." 7. Process the data. Fact. No human ID badge was used to enter the control room during the critical window. Fact. Only Kale, the cleaning robot, entered the room. Fact. Kale is an offline unit and cannot be hacked remotely. "Someone is lying," 7 stated calmly, "but the physical evidence speaks the truth." 7 held up a small, sealed sample bag. Inside was the red sand he had collected from the floor. "We found this under the frozen robot," 7 announced. "It is soil from the roof garden. Dr. Vance, you frequent the garden, do you not?" "I go there for lunch sometimes," Vance shrugged. "So what? I might have tracked some mud in on my shoes days ago." "That is unlikely," 7 countered, "because this is not mud. Chemical analysis shows that 100% of the moisture has been removed from this sample. It is not dried mud. It is dehydrated earth, Seven held up a second sample bag. Inside was the piece of clear ice. And this, Seven continued, is not normal ice. It is distilled water, pure H2O. No minerals, no dust. Distilled? Sarah frowned, her engineer's mind engaging. Like water used in batteries, or water that has been boiled into steam and condensed. Precisely, Seven said. But that's impossible. Sarah shook her head. The control room was freezing. To distill water, you need a heat source. You need to boil it. If there was a fire hot enough to boil water, the room wouldn't be minus 10 degrees. That is the paradox, Seven said, looking from Vance to Sarah. We have dry sand that should be wet. We have pure ice that should be dirty. And we have a room that is frozen, yet holds the evidence of intense heat. Maya looked at Seven. So what does it mean? It means, Seven said, that the killer did not need to enter the room. They sent a carrier, and that carrier brought the heat with them. Chapter 4. The Sealed Distiller. Seven stood perfectly still in the hallway. To an observer, he looked like a statue, but inside his processor, millions of calculations were firing every second. He entered deep logic mode. Time seemed to slow down. Seven visualized the crime scene in his mind, floating in a digital void. Variable A, the freezing air, minus 10 degrees. Variable B, the dry red sand, dehydrated. Variable C, the clear ice pellets, distilled water. Variable D, the robot, Kale, the container. Connect the dots, his program urged. Find the link between heat and cold. Seven simulated the timeline. He watched the events replay in his mind, adjusting the variables until the physics made sense. Finally, the simulation clicked into place. The error rate dropped to 0. Seven blinked, his blue eyes focusing back on the real world. I have the solution, Seven said. Maya looked up from her notebook. You do? Who entered the room? No one, Seven said. The culprit did not enter the room. He used a Trojan horse. Kale? Maya asked, looking back at the frozen door. Correct, Seven explained. Imagine the timeline, detective. Someone hid a high-output heating device inside Kale's dustbin. This device was covered in wet, red mud from the roof garden. Why mud? To hide the device, or perhaps simply to add weight. But here is the trap. When Kale rolled into the control room, the device activated. It generated intense heat. The room's thermal sensors detected this, fire, and panicked. So the system tried to put out the fire, Maya realized, by dropping the temperature and freezing the city. Exactly, Seven nodded. The system reacted to save the tower. But wait, Maya frowned. If the room froze immediately, how did the water drip? It should have frozen inside the robot. That is the brilliance of the trick, Seven said, raising a finger. It was a battle of temperatures. Seven began to gesture, illustrating the process in the air. Phase 1. The room freezes to minus 10 degrees. The floor becomes solid ice. Phase 2, Seven continued. The device inside Kale remains hot. It is like an oven inside a freezer. The heat cooks the wet mud. The water in the mud boils and turns into steam. Steam rises. Maya whispered. Yes, the steam rises up, but the top of Kale's metal body is being cooled by the freezing room. When the hot steam hits the cold metal lid, it turns back into water. This is condensation. And then, Seven finished, the water drips down. Drip, 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 it falls out of the bottom of the robot. But remember, the floor is already frozen. The moment the pure distilled water drops hit the floor, they freeze instantly into clear ice pellets. Maya looked at the door, amazed. So, while the room was fighting to freeze the city, Kale was secretly boiling the water out of the mud. Correct, Seven said. Kale was turned into a walking distillation engine, and that engine left a trail of evidence that points directly to the person who planted it. Chapter 5. The Truth Thaws. Seven and Maya marched down the hallway to the director's office. The door was unlocked. Inside, Dr. Vance was frantically packing a leather bag. Papers were scattered across his desk. "Going somewhere, Doctor?" Maya asked, leaning against the door frame. Vance jumped. "This city is a disaster zone. I am leaving until you incompetent police fix the grid. I have important meetings in the capital." "We have already fixed it," Seven said, stepping into the room. He placed a small, clear plastic bag on Vance's polished desk. Inside was a crumpled, dirty white handkerchief. Vance stared at it. His face went pale. "We found this in your office trash can," Seven said. "It is stained with red clay, the same clay found in the roof garden, and the same clay found inside the cleaning robot." "So?" Vance stammered, trying to regain his composure. "I told you. I visited the garden. I wiped my shoes. That proves nothing." "True," Seven nodded. "The handkerchief alone is circumstantial. But we also opened the robot." Seven reached into his coat pocket and produced a heavy, blackened metal box. It looked like a burnt battery. Chunks of hard, baked mud were still stuck to its sides. "We found this inside Kale's dustbin," Seven said. "It is a high-output thermal generator. It is illegal to own without a permit." Seven stepped closer, his voice lowering. "Here is the logic, Dr. Vance. You have been complaining about budget cuts for months. You wanted more funding for the Weather Bureau. You needed a crisis to scare the investors. You planned a small accident," Maya added, crossing her arms. "A heat spike, just enough to trigger an alarm, blame it on old equipment, and get your money." "But you miscalculated," Seven said. "You hid the device inside the robot to avoid being seen on camera. But you didn't account for the mud inside the bin, or the physics of the enclosed space." "You tried to burn the system," Maya said, "but instead you created a steam engine that froze the city." Vance slumped into his chair, covering his face with his hands. It was supposed to be a glitch," he whispered. "Just a warning. I didn't think the system would react so violently. I didn't mean to hurt anyone." "Nature is not a glitch, Doctor," Seven said coldly, "and neither is physics. Steam rises, ice freezes, and criminals get caught." An hour later, the Weather Bureau technicians reset the core system. The artificial clouds above OG parted, and the warm, golden sun shone down again. Outside the tower, the ice on the streets began to crack and melt. Water dripped from the rooftops, glistening in the light. Maya took a deep breath of the warming air. She watched the police drones finally coming back online, buzzing through the sky to help with the cleanup. "Good work, Seven," Maya said, smiling at her partner. "You know, for a robot, you have a pretty good imagination. Figuring out that steam and ice trick took some creative thinking." "Imagination is inefficient," Seven replied, adjusting his collar. "I simply applied the laws of thermodynamics and probability." Sure, Maya laughed, slapping him on the shoulder. "Hey, your circuits must be overheating from all that thinking. Want to grab an iced coffee?" Seven paused. He looked at a puddle of melting snow near his feet. "Detective," Seven said seriously, "after today I believe I will avoid ice for a while. I will stick to warm engine oil." Maya grinned. "You're learning, Seven. You're definitely learning."
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and it helped you improve your English. Please subscribe to this channel and click the like button. Your support helps us create the next video.